Tech Live. Apple brings us new iPhones, Apple Watch, and AirPods. What is accessibility like in iOS 18? And we introduce you to the Lotus Ring. This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Mark Aflalo. The latest in tech and accessibility every week. Follow us now and get involved at Access Tech Live.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Access Tech Live. I am Stephen Scott, joined by my side this and every week from Montreal. It is Mark Aflalo. How are you, Mark?
Hello. I'm doing good, Stephen. Anything interesting happened this week? I don't really think anything is going on. Pretty quiet, right?
No. I mean, I heard that, there's a couple of cool events coming up and stuff. I think Google have launched some really cool phones. We did talk about that, though. Nothing else, though, right? I mean, apart from that Apple thing the other day. That was quite interesting.
That one.
Yeah,
it was a good time. It was a good time. Lots of cool stuff announced, which obviously we're going to talk about, right?
We're going to get into all of that today. So much to talk about. In fact, I think we should just jump right in because there's lots to talk about, of course, and we'll get to the headlines in just a moment. Just let me tell you, though, who else is joining us this hour to talk about the big announcements from Apple this week. Carrie Morales will be with us a bit later. She is a content creator. She creates her own YouTube channel called Carrie on Accessibility. Brilliant name for a YouTube channel. She is joining us a bit later to talk through the announcements. And also, we're going to talk about the true cost of new devices and the digital divide which comes up as a result of the ever-increasing cost of all of these devices. Chad Lehman is with us from the Neil Squire Society a little bit later. And then later still, we're going to be talking about smart tech from a traditional point of view, using infrared to get the most out of smart tech. So essentially no longer needing a Wi-Fi connection or any kind of internet connection at all. Very interesting product called Lotus Ring. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But first, Mark is here with all the headlines.
Now, Access Tech Live headlines.
Well, in case you missed it, the iPhone 16 is here, and everything that's old is new again on this lineup of phones. Where to begin? Let's start with the entry-level iPhone 16 and 16 Plus, shall we?
iPhone continues to make a profound impact on all of our lives. Its power and capability enable us to get so much done, so quickly and so easily. Like connecting with our family and friends, staying productive on the go. It puts powerful generative models right at the core of your iPhone, making it even more useful and delightful. The next generation of iPhone has been designed for Apple Intelligence from the ground up. It marks the beginning of an exciting new era.
Yes, it does, and that's Apple CEO Tim Cook, if you didn't recognize the voice. So what's new about this phone? Well, it has the same design as last year's iPhone 15, but the camera configuration is different, kind of reminiscent of the iPhone from about 4 years ago. Two new cameras are stacked vertically on top of each other, allowing for spatial photos when you flip it on its side and use it and can watch it on the Apple Vision Pro. The action button from last year's Pro models now come to the entry-level iPhone 16, as does a brand new button called the Camera Control button.
The camera control provides instant, easy access to the camera with just a click. It allows you to adjust various camera features simply by sliding your finger. Its convenient design ensures it's always within reach. And with iPhone 16, the camera becomes even more important, now serving as a powerful tool for intelligence.
Yep, that's pretty cool. And to follow her lead, let's move on to intelligence, shall we? Visual intelligence is also coming to the iPhone, and it helps you get way more information from everything around you. You can see everything you could see with the tap of a button. Here's Craig Federighi.
Visual intelligence is just a click away with iPhone 16's new camera control that Cayenne introduced earlier. Let me show you. Suppose you're out for a stroll and you stumble upon a restaurant you haven't been to before. Just click and hold the camera control and point your iPhone. With just a click, boom, your iPhone instantly pulls up restaurant hours, ratings, and quick options to check out the menu or make a reservation. And you can learn more with just a tap.
There's a new protective layer on the screen called Ceramic Shield, which is 50% tougher. The battery is larger, but what we don't know right now is what that means for performance. And screen sizes are 6.1 and 6.7 inches. The new phones feature Apple's A18 processor for intelligence and, of course, performance, which means the company has jumped from the A16 to the A18. There are 5 new colors: black, white, pink, teal, and ultramarine. Pre-orders begin tomorrow, Friday, and we'll see the devices in stores next Friday, the 20th of September. Pricing starts at $11.20 Canadian for the 16 and $12.79 for the 16 Plus. The Pro versions of the iPhone 16 have a new camera control button as well, a new A18 Pro chip with some extra power for intelligence, but this one has the same camera design as last year's model with 3 cameras on board. All 3 are upgraded for better performance and autofocus across all of them, and video now lets you shoot 4K in 120 frames per second. There are enhancements to satellite SOS features, bigger and better battery life, and a lot of features like roadside assistance and intelligence are still to come with updates down the road. Pricing for the Pro model started at $14.49 Canadian for the Basic Pro and $17.49 for the Pro Max. Now, this is the 10th anniversary of the Apple Watch, and after years of iterative changes, we're seeing another one, but a thinner design, larger screen, but still compatible with all those accessories you've bought over the years. So what's new?
It's the thinnest Apple Watch ever, with our largest and most advanced display in a sleek, lightweight, all-metal case that comes in gorgeous new finishes of aluminum and polished titanium. The design of Series 10 is truly a milestone of watchmaking. It has the powerful S10 SIP and a breakthrough new sleep apnea feature. Series 10 is our fastest charging watch yet, with all-day 18-hour battery life. New depth and water temperature sensors make it great for water activities. It includes the intelligent new features of watchOS 11, and it looks fantastic with this year's watch bands.
Yeah, I must admit it does. The larger screen, of course, has new technology called wide-angled OLED that lets you see it better from different angles. Of course, you mentioned faster charging thanks to a more efficient charging coil, and the new titanium design replaces stainless steel as an option. The price, well, it starts at $5.49 Canadian. It's available in stores next Friday, the 20th as well, and you can pre-order it right now on the Apple website. Let's talk about headphones for a second. The entry-level AirPods are changing for the first time in forever. They feature a brand new design after years of experience, better battery life, processing power, and 2 variations.
These new models are the best open-ear AirPods we've ever built, with game-changing audio performance, powered by advanced machine learning that enables personalized spatial audio and active noise cancellation, with voice isolation, Siri interactions, and so much more.
That is Apple's Kate Bergeron, VP of Hardware Engineering. The entry-level versions are priced at $179, but for $249, you'll get a charging case that has built-in speakers, wireless charging capabilities, and the earbuds will come with active noise cancellation for that premium. The AirPods Max now come with USB-C, but everything else on board is exactly the same as when they launched them, with a couple new colors across the board. Now, let's talk about the AirPods Pro, because the bigger news here on the headphone side is that the existing AirPods Pro, the ones you can get in store now, are about to be certified as over-the-counter hearing aids.
75% of people diagnosed with hearing loss haven't received the assistive support they need. So we are really excited to announce that this fall, AirPods Pro will have a clinical-grade over-the-counter hearing aid feature. We're adding this groundbreaking capability to help more than 1 billion people living with mild to moderate hearing loss. After you take a hearing test, your AirPods Pro are transformed into a personalized hearing aid, boosting the specific sounds you need in real time, like parts of speech or elements within your environment. This will allow you to hear your surroundings better, to help keep you safe and connect you with people nearby. So it's even easier to hear and engage in conversations.
Apple announced new hearing aid capabilities for users with mild to moderate hearing loss. It'll help you conduct an on-device hearing test and then use that resulting profile across listening in the real world and to things like music, movies, and even gaming. It's a pretty big piece of the puzzle in the accessibility of hearing aid health solutions that may indicate a pretty seismic shift in the landscape of hearing aids in general. More news coming up, and of course, discussion about everything that Apple announced. In the meantime, one other story that came to our attention this week is Google, as you know, introduced a new AI-powered feature in its TalkBack screen reader that uses Gemini to describe images for blind users. However, this feature will not be available on Samsung Galaxy devices. Michelle Rahman is a freelance contributor from Android Authority and explains why.
Samsung devices actually have their own TalkBack service that's developed by Samsung. Their version of TalkBack is not one-to-one with Google's version. So anytime Google pushes an update to their version of TalkBack that adds a new feature, such as this new AI image descriptor feature that Google is rolling out, that feature will not be immediately available on Samsung version of TalkBack. Google actually allows Android device makers like Samsung to create their own versions of TalkBack, of all these other accessibility services, so long as they have certain features. We don't know when or if it will ever be available on Samsung's version of TalkBack, because Samsung controls the updates, not Google.
No, they don't. So that's all the headlines in tech and accessibility this week so far, Stephen. Obviously, we're going to dive into our opinions and thoughts about everything that Apple announced this week and over the coming weeks, because I make no promises as to when we're going to get our hands on stuff. We'll be going hands-on with, of course, all these new devices to see what's new and really put them to the test. And if anybody's watching at home that wants to talk about something specific about these devices, they can let us know what we want to dive into, and we'll definitely do that. I can breathe now, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we should just wrap up, to be honest. I think we're done. Really, that covers it as far
Great
as I'm
show.
concerned.
Thanks for coming.
Everything's in there. Well done, Mark. No, seriously, loads of news to get into. We're going to, of course, be talking to Carrie Morales soon about all of this. But before that, let's dive into our weekly question. What have you been asking our audience this week?
Well, it's interesting because we got an email from Darren Ross that wrote us this, and it kind of led us into the question. He goes, "This drives me nuts." He goes, "I know this is an old and much aired grievance, but the total unfair pricing of stuff like this drives me to distraction. The new iPhone 16 basic model will cost our American cousins $7.99, whilst in the UK we'll have to pay $7.99. British pounds, or sorry, even euros at that point. A quick currency conversion tells me that that's an equivalent of $1,045. $7.99 should be approximately $6.10, but oh no, that's not seen as fair. Charging us an extra $2.45, though, is absolutely fine." I know, that's just the way it is, but boy, oh boy, does it pickle my onions. $10.45 for an $800 phone. Sheesh. Stephen, we speak to a lot of people that are, hesitant on upgrading, and the price tag is just getting really, really insane. It's the same thing here. Like, you do the currency conversion, obviously it changes on a daily basis, but the prices don't seem to reflect that. So the question we threw out on social media at Access Tech Live is the pricing of mainstream tech becoming too inaccessible for you? Not accessibility like for people with disability. We're talking about, is it just too expensive to go out and buy? And a lot of people started, I throw out certain questions, Stephen. I don't expect a lot of people to react. This one went a little bit crazy. So if you've got an opinion, we're definitely going to get to it throughout the show. Connect with us on all our social media platforms. It's at Access Tech Live, of course, on social. If you want to email us, it's feedback@accesstechlive.com, and we will get that as well. Coming up here on Access Tech Live, we broke down the headlines, but it's time to dive into the details. When we return, everything we think you need to know about Apple's iPhone 16 event with special guest Carrie Morales, otherwise known as Carrie on Accessibility. And she brings her love of technology and passion for accessibility to YouTube every week, and she's with us next after a quick break here on Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. This is Access Tech Live.
So Apple announced 3 updates really across its ranges of iPhone, Apple Watch and AirPods line. Of course, some other updates as well. Let's break into all of this and get some detail and thoughts from Carrie Morales, also known as Carrie on Accessibility, blind content creator on YouTube. Good to have you here on Access Tech Live, Carrie.
Thanks, Stephen. I'm excited to be here. I was actually really excited about this Apple event this year. I especially loved the new colors, but my favorite has to be the new camera control buttons. What about you?
I love the camera control as well. It's Mark, by the way, here. I'm curious to get hands-on, and I'm curious to know how it works with accessibility, because a lot of people have been asking what you can customize on it and actually use it for. But what about it strikes you as the interesting part? Is it just having that at your fingertip, Carrie?
I think having that at your fingertips, being able to integrate that into different apps, imagine being able to control things like Be My Eyes or the magnifier or detection mode on the iPhone, or even just can you do other shortcuts with VoiceOver or with Zoom? I think that it would be amazing to see what Apple does, maybe when it comes out or even in the future, and how other third-party app makers will use this.
And we do kind of know that that is possible, right? Because although they talked about the camera control being the main reason for that button existing, they also talked about visual intelligence being a reason for it existing. So that tells you it can do more than one thing. Anything else about the new iPhones? Because, I mean, I know colors are a big deal to you. So, you know, I'm guessing that the pink color, I don't want to assume, but, you know, I know that you've been on Double Tap with us before, but I can say this with a relative amount of authority. You're going to be looking forward to the pink iPhone 16, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. I love the pink version, but I think this time I will be pre-ordering the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I think I'm going to get teal just for fun because I got a pink Pixel 9 Pro, so it's time to get a different color.
Interesting. Okay, let's go with that. You know, it's interesting that you brought up the third-party developers using this camera control button, and I think the biggest takeaway I get from this Apple event, obviously the hearing aid feature of the AirPods Pro 2 is cool, and it's nice to see upgrades across the board, but it's about the software, right? It's really just about the software experience that, honestly, I couldn't care less about the performance of some of these devices, because it's my iPhone 15 Pro is just perfectly fine. Even the 14s are I think, perfectly fine. You know, are we on the same page here when it comes to software is really what's making these things stand out and different from each other?
Absolutely. I am really looking forward to the whole Apple Intelligence. Props to them, by the way, for rebranding AI. I love that. But I am really looking forward to how it stacks up compared to Gemini, which is the Android Google version. And from what I've heard from the betas, people are actually really enjoying Siri and the new Siri, which, I mean, let's be honest here, anything is better than the old Siri. I think that as it knows you and has access to all your personal information, it can better help. But I'm also really excited about this kind of Google Lens-like experience, being able to press that camera button for visual intelligence and then just pointing it at something. Are we going to be able to use it like the Be My Eyes and Be My AI and other things like that? Are we going to be able to ask it different questions about our environment, especially as somebody who's blind or low vision? That, to me, could be a really big opportunity.
There are a lot of cool new features coming in. As you say, Mark, it's about the software. Let's be honest about it. There's tons of new features coming in iOS 18, especially for accessibility. I'm thinking about eye tracking, for example, which is a brand new feature coming to iOS and iPadOS, and that is going to be a tremendous feature for people with motor impairments. For people with hearing loss or who are deaf, they can enjoy music with music haptics, which seems like a really cool, fun feature, right? And that's a great thing. It's a brilliant thing to bring in, something we can, allows everybody to take part in the fun. It doesn't have to always be a medical thing. What else are you aware of that's coming up in iOS 18, Carrie, that really stands out for you in terms of making a difference to accessibility?
I think that just having that Apple Intelligence, but aside from that, I just really want to see how it integrates with other apps and having more control over your phone, and not just being able to have this chat GPT like experience, but being able to control other apps. That's what's more exciting for me. But I don't know. I'll have to see what they come up with as for specific accessibility related features. That's what's most exciting for me, really. What about you?
I was going into this, I was wondering how they were going to combat and compare themselves to certain features on the Pixel, like circle to search, and this is something that Google announced almost 6-7 months ago, where you press and hold kind of that home button area and you can circle anything on your screen to search it. Now, Apple demonstrated this with the guy walking through San Francisco, pointing it at a restaurant and holding that button for a second, that new camera control button, and it did the same thing. And what struck me interesting to both of you, and either you can chime in on this, was that not only did they achieve the same thing in terms of being able to just search for anything or identify anything that's on your screen, but you didn't have to worry about circling anything. They made it a completely hands-free experience. Now, yes, I know there's limitations there. You can't circle a specific area on your screen, but I can, go hold it up against my dog and say, what kind of dog is this? And I thought that was an interesting way to one-up the competition in a feature that I wasn't sure how they were going to even approach.
I think it's very interesting how on the Pixels, you can circle what's on your screen, like you mentioned, but on the Apple iPhones, you can just take a picture of what's actually real in front of you. And you can kind of achieve the same thing by actively taking a picture with Gemini. You can send Gemini a picture, and you can use something like Google Lens, but it seems a lot easier to just have that button and send it straight away to Siri. So I think that it's going to be really interesting to see where people actually use AI and what actually day-to-day uses and utility they can find.
Yeah, although I've got to say, the idea of walking up to a dog, I imagine attached to an owner in some way, and pointing your phone at a dog and taking the picture of the dog and then asking a phone, what kind of dog is this? I mean, couldn't you just ask the owner? I mean, am I missing something here? Are we completely cutting ourselves off from other people in society? Can't we just talk to each other?
We could, Stephen. I don't think we want to anymore.
Want to, yeah.
With all these announcements, and they always end this off with the price tag and availability, and it brings up the question of affordability, and that's the question we threw out on social media, which is, are these devices becoming too expensive? And this is a conversation that I think we'll be having for a long time, because manufacturers price their products a certain way and hope that people do it, and a lot of people do buy it. But it almost, begs the question, and I want to throw this out to you before we take a quick break, Carrie, because we're going to dive into this even deeper with Chad Lehman as well. Is you're a single mom, you've got a lot of stuff on your plate. Are these things pricing themselves out of range for the average person? What's your take on that?
I think absolutely yes. Companies just keep trying to slowly, very slowly, increase the price every single year, and then there's the lowest tier models have less storage, and you feel like you have to go and get the upgraded one, and then next year there's a new one. You need to buy that new one because it has new features and better hardware, and it just every year it just feels like it's slowly increasing and increasing. And the worst part is the trade-in values are decreasing, or at least that's how it feels like for me.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. Hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. Coming up here on Access Tech Live, we're going to bring in another guest to kind of make a roundtable discussion here. Chad Lehman is from the Neil Squire Society, and we're going to get his opinion as well because he works around this a lot. This is Access Tech Live. We'll be right back.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Now, back to Access Tech Live.
Stephen Scott here, along with Mark Aflalo, joined today by Carrie Morales, also known as Carrie on Accessibility on YouTube. Go check out that YouTube channel. It is excellent. We're talking today about all the new iPhones and all the new lovely AirPods and all the new watches and, of course, the price that comes with all of this amazing tech. Let's bring in Chad Lehman from the Neil Squire Society to join us on this conversation, particularly around cost and the true digital divide and actually the true cost of these products, which may indeed be a digital divide. Chad, welcome to Access Tech Live.
Thank you for having me, Mark, Stephen. Nice to meet you, Carrie.
Chad, you know, you work in this...
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead, Steve. Go ahead. Go ahead. It's all yours.
I just want to ask you that question. You know, is that the true cost of these devices, which is that many people just cannot afford them, but they feel they need to keep up. They feel that their kids need to keep up. And what is the true cost of these devices?
Yeah, definitely there's an issue with the digital divide, and that's, you know, as so much more of our life moves online, which was certainly pulled forward with COVID, where everything really went digital first. If you don't have access to devices to stay connected, you're further marginalized. And this especially exacerbated for people with disabilities. The employment rate of people with disabilities is closer to 60% compared to the general population, which is closer to 80%. So they're less likely to have economic means. So you're further marginalized. So that divide between the people that have access to technology and can participate in our digital and online economies and communities, and the people that don't have that, they're further marginalized. So the price becomes a big barrier, and it really compounds for people with disabilities.
How much responsibility, Chad, do you think there is with a lot of these companies that are sitting there pricing these products? I mean, you consider the fact that, you know, when you create things like these in volume, your price often gets dropped, like it drives down, yet the pricing that we as consumers are paying tends to increase, as does inflation. It doesn't seem to be matching, you know, what the world is actually feeling.
Certainly, you know, you can look at the investor relations site of the Apples and the Googles. They're making incredible margins on these devices. So they're not, you know, they have billions of dollars on their balance sheet, but they're constantly looking for that, like, how do we grow another 10% a year? And so going to have new models. They're going to cost more than the old models, and you're kind of stuck with, are you getting it or are you not getting it? Going to be left behind. So there's they're looking at the return to shareholders and want to make sure, obviously, the consumer has a good experience, but the price is the price, and that isn't made by sort of, it's not a commodity, right? It's made at a boardroom table, and they can set the price of where they want, and people are kind of forced to pony up or be left out.
And of course, you can look broadly at this, can't you, Neil, and say, well, the cost of technology is increasing overall. But of course, for disabled people, this is access. This is not always just a device that you can go and get and have lots of fun with. Of course, that's part of the joy of getting these devices. But for a lot of people, it is about connection. It's a way of keeping in touch, maybe getting access to a bank account accessibly. And if that price is driven up, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of the price costs of the sort of marketing around this is around the Apple Intelligence, the new AI sort of features that they're going to bake in. I know there's some new chip hardware on the device that will power that sort of piece. But it does become like how much do you need it? I feel the few previous iterations of the iPhone, like there's not a big differentiator, or this maybe has the potential to have a bunch of new sort of features and accessibility and opportunities through it, if you're willing to pay the entry fee to purchase the device and come aboard. So with great new possibilities comes more affordability issues and divides.
Carrie, let's bring you in the conversation here, because I'm curious to get your perspective on the reason for which you want to go out and buy these devices. Obviously, there's, I think, a little bit of, the fear of missing out, FOMO. And of course, what you're doing as a content creator, you want to have the latest and greatest. But are there other driving factors that lead you to either decide to or not to get one of these devices?
I think for me, it's a huge issue of accessibility. I get the new Pixel or the new iPhone because the camera is better. And that's not just because I can take better pictures or better videos, but because I use the magnifier a lot. And so if I can make that easier to see, whether it's for me or for my son, then I have a bigger incentive, a bigger drive to go out and buy it and spend the money, maybe put it on a credit card or do installments, because the screen is better. It's brighter. I can see it better outside. Like, that's the difference of me accessing a piece of technology and not accessing it. And, for people like in my family who have hearing impairments, they get the new iPhone because it has a better speaker and they can hear it better. So there's so many other reasons, not just because of FOMO, that I feel as somebody with a disability, you feel like you have to get the new thing.
But of course, there's an additional reality as a disabled person, Carrie, and you know this and I know this, and that is that costs of living are higher for disabled people. So how do you marry that together?
It's really difficult. It's really difficult. You have to decide what to spend your money on. Like we discussed earlier, a lot of us don't have as much financial independence or financial wherewithal to actually get out these devices. And so you have to kind of decide, what are you going to spend it on? Are you going to save up to get the new iPhone? Are you going to open a credit card, which could impact you in a lot of different ways? You have to sometimes sacrifice. Okay, well, instead of getting this one, I suppose I can settle for the last generation or the lower tier or whatnot. And sometimes I have, tried to sell previous products because a lot of the trade-in values are, like I mentioned, is lower than expected. The newest iPhone 15 Pro Max, the previous generation, is only being accepted for a trade-in value of like $650, which is very low in comparison to how much you spent on it. And so you have to make sacrifices. And that's honestly what it's like to have a disability.
With technology changing so rapidly, Chad, I'll throw this to you. How do you think society can prevent this digital divide from growing even further and growing even wider, especially for people with disabilities?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, in some provinces and in some regions that you have this sort of like bin and bucket sort of piece, right? Like if you are in a post-secondary education institution, you can have some assistive technology funded for you. Same thing in the K-12 system. those systems see the change by where you are, where you're sort of in that sort of journey. And it comes with a chicken and the egg problem too, right? Where it's like, if you have a job offer, then you have the assistive technology in the workplace, but how do you get in a spot where you have the ability to independently write the resume and get that job without the assistive technology? And then when you have the platform itself, like the laptop or like the iPhone, those usually aren't considered an assistive technology device. That's the platform. So sometimes the funding will cover those peripheries or additional software. But with so much of the accessibility features now being baked into the device, right? Microsoft has really great accessibility features. The iPhone continues to improve the accessibility features, but that's not an assistive technology device. So sometimes those funding mechanisms and streams that help people get the assistive technology doesn't cover the core platform, when the core platform actually can now meet a lot of those needs. So the programs that are there to try to help close that digital divide sometimes aren't keeping up with their policies and procedures and their eligibility to what the reality is on the ground. So there's sometimes programs in place, but they don't always meet the needs, or sometimes don't keep up to the changing realities and the pace of innovation that happens in the technology sector.
And there is another strand of accessibility, of course, that is usability, right? So there's a lot of people out there who may want to use this technology, but can't. They've no one around that can help them to access it. Even perhaps they can't access decent internet connections to even hook on to the internet. So, you know, there are real challenges out there. And of course, this affects disabled people disproportionately, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of my working career really on looking around the digital divide and access, both for the disability community, but other just sort of skill-based pieces. Digital literacy training is super important, especially as we move forward, and is specialized for people with disabilities, right? Teaching someone how to use the internet is very different than using a screen reader sort of software, or how to, if you have a hearing loss, use the caption or auto-generating caption sort of pieces, right? There's an additional layer of barriers there. And quite often there's not like systemic sort of programs. Over COVID, there was a push by government to really help close this digital divide. But now that the pandemic's over, so too remain those programs and funding streams as really back to sort of a piecemeal as opposed to Canadian-wide sort of approach. So it can be very difficult to sort of find those training opportunities. I mean, we run free computer literacy program at Neil Squire Society, but that was much better resourced over the pandemic, and those programs are gone. So it's back to sort of volunteers doing that training. And, the scale of the amount of people that we can support and reach has definitely decreased without the sort of funding that allows to make that happen.
Well, Chad, you guys do a great job in Neil Squire Society, and of course, Makers Making Change. And we'll talk to you again, I'm sure, nearing the Hacking for the Holidays stuff, where you empower people to create really cool, accessibility products. So thank you for taking the time to join us, Carrie, as well. Thank you. If you want to follow Carrie, it's Carrie on Accessibility on YouTube, and of course, you can check out over the Neil Squire Society online as well. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Mark.
Take care.
Coming up here on Access Tech Live, we first heard of a product called the Lotus Ring at CES back in January. Well, that product is now available, and we're going to find out all about it after a quick break here on Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Back to Access Tech Live.
Now, imagine that you could control your lights just by using a ring on your hand, a ring on your finger. That sounds like a really interesting proposition. No fiddly apps, no internet connection required at all. Well, that's exactly what the Lotus Ring is all about, and we heard about it earlier this year at CES, Mark.
Yes, we did, and Deval Patel is the founder and CEO of Lotus, whose mission is to build technology that's useful to everyone by optimizing for disability first. And Deval joins us now. And give me a quick background on, of course, what inspired you to create the Lotus Ring.
Yeah, absolutely. So the story really starts with me. I was born with twisted knees. And over the years, I've been on and off crutches myself. And one night, a few years ago, I got into bed having left the lights on accidentally. But I was too tired to get out of bed, hop onto my crutches, hobble 10 feet, turn off the light, hobble back 10 feet, and get back into bed. So I just slept with the lights on the entire night and woke up in the morning not having slept well, thinking, if someone like me, I'm an engineer, I used to manage a division at Apple for iPhone, Watch, and AirPods. I've worked at the company that makes the wall switches. I've worked at Lutron. I have 37 patents. You know, if an electrical engineer like me doesn't even have smart home technology in their own home, who does? And that was the genesis. That's how I started digging.
How long ago was that?
That was some time ago. That was before 2021. I think it was pre-pandemic, but I was also convinced it was the worst idea in the world. So I didn't do anything about it. And then after I decided to do something about it, I interviewed people for 9 months.
For the benefit of our audience here, can you explain what Lotus Ring is, what it does, and explain the technology behind it? Because I think that's a really important key to the door here.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's back up. Why don't we start with kind of the state of the art today, right? So let's say you wanted to actually use Alexa to control your lights. Well, what's the first step? Well, the first step is you need to rewire your wall switches to connect to the internet, to be able to talk to Alexa, right? That's step number one. Then you have to put a smart, and that, by the way, that's everywhere in your home. So wherever you want smart home tech, you have to rewire everywhere. That's step one. Step two, wherever you've rewired your wall switches, now you have to put a smart speaker in every room of the house to control the switches you just rewired. That's step two. And by the way, step one is 11 hours or $2,000 just to rewire your home. Okay, so step one, rewire. Step two, put speakers in every room. Step three, if you somehow got through the first two hurdles, you have to now pair every switch one by one through another app. And if you lose power, by the way, you lose all the pairing, so you have to start from scratch all over again. And this is best case. Everything I just described is best case if you own the house. If you're renting an apartment, there's no solution. If you're traveling for work or for pleasure, there's no solution. Like, what do you do in a hotel? You can't take your smart home with you. So it affects everyone, but it disproportionately affects people like me. About 27 million people, at least here in the US, with limited mobility. We're talking veteran soldiers, older adults, and disabled persons. So to solve that problem, we ended up creating Lotus. So Lotus is a wearable ring that controls objects at home by pointing. But unlike, say, Alexa, there's no apps, no rewiring, and no internet. And I'm happy to talk about how it works. In fact, I have a little show and tell here as well.
Well, let's get into the show and tell, because I think that's the biggest question people are going to have right now. How?
Absolutely. So step number one, you put on the ring. There's a single button that I'm using on the camera here, single button. And all you do is push the button. I'll explain what it does in a second. So putting on the ring once eliminates the need to have a smart speaker in every room of your home, because the ring stays on you and goes with you wherever you go. So that's step one. Step two, for any existing wall switch, and we haven't made any changes. This is a regular wall switch. And by the way, there are other types of wall switches too. I have another prototype here as an example. For any existing wall switch, you can attach the second half, which is a Lotus switch cover, and it attaches on just using magnets. So there's no rewiring. There's 2 magnets on the back, and it can just go on top of any existing wall switch. Now you can continue using the wall switch manually as well. So you can walk up to it and use it like a regular wall switch. Just press on the front surface. But the most important part, step 3, all you do is point and click. And using infrared, just like your TV remote, eliminates the need for any apps or smartphones or internet. Basically, we let you go from home to smart home in seconds, and you can take any of this with you wherever you go.
Now, I'd ask the question, but I think we all know the answer here, which is, how does this enhance accessibility and obviously open the door to independence for people with limited mobility? I mean, you're demonstrating it right there, right? So we know the answer to this, but, you know, you're not getting up off your couch, you're not getting up out of your bed, you're not doing anything. It really is that quick and simple and easy to install and use, right?
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better, right? It's the social model of disability. It's making any environment around you immediately accessible within seconds and in such a way that you can move it with you wherever you go. So you can change any environment anywhere that you are to be accessible such that you're more independent. And even the changing the environment, you don't need somebody else. You can do that yourself too.
Okay, let's get a little technical for a second here, if you don't mind, Deval, because, you know, infrared, you know, again, for people listening to this conversation, tuning in today, are probably thinking, hang on a minute, this is a bit old, isn't it? This is old technology here. You've got moving parts in the switch, of course, that go on top of the switch, and then you've got the infrared. But in this case, infrared is kind of perfect, isn't it? Because I'm assuming you can have multiple devices in a room, and based on what you're pointing at, you're controlling that device.
So you should be our spokesperson. You nailed it. So the whole benefit of infrared is on a few factors. One, exactly that you mentioned. You don't need an app to control 5 things in your home. Because think about it. How do you do that today with Internet of Things? You have to find your phone, unlock your phone, find the app, and then find the specific device that you're trying to control. Usually by that point, it's almost easier for some folks to just get up and kind of move the thing anyway.
You know, there's a story, I think, in every household where, you know, you've made your home smart and then your wife or your kids get up and turn the light on faster than you can do it.
Right, exactly. And so with this, and the reason for that is there's no way for your phone to know which light switch you're trying to turn on. Versus with this, it's like a TV remote. Only the thing you're pointing to will turn on and off. So you don't need any smart stuff. You can just point and click to whatever you're trying to control. And so my expertise is actually human interface. That's what I did at Apple. And the reason your TV remotes haven't changed in decades, if you think about it, they haven't changed in decades. And the reason for that is exactly, it's low physical effort and low cognitive effort, right? It's a small muscle movement and it's very easy to understand. The way we like to describe it is we are using old technologies, established technologies, but in a very, very new way. I mean, trying to miniaturize sort of very, very old school technology is a completely different engineering problem. And so, yeah, the nice thing about infrared is battery life. Instead of having to charge this every day, like an Apple Watch, or every 3 days, like an Oura Ring, you only need to charge this once in 90 days, 90. And it's the same with the switch cover, because it's only taking power for the 50 milliseconds that I push the button. The rest of the time, it's not drawing any power. Versus with Internet of Things, they have to be connected to the network all the time, so they have to draw power all the time. In fact, that's why they have wires, to be able to draw power all the time, to be able to be connected all the time. Versus with this, it's no different than your TV remote, right? When was the last time you even remember changing the batteries?
I was going to bring that up, actually, because, you know, battery life is amazing. I mean, there's other elements of this, too, which could enable this, you know, obviously for internet connectivity. But there's nothing stopping you from doing it, right? So you could have the best of both worlds, especially given that there's a physical switch that could connect to the internet, or people could use IR blasters, which, you know, allow you to control different things. I guess you could use a lot of that stuff if you wanted to benefit from both worlds. That's really quite amazing, right?
No, actually, that's been one of the nicest things. So that tends to be true if the older technology has deprecated. But if you think about it, all TVs, literally every single TV you can buy today, including the smart ones, still have an infrared transmitter and the receiver. Their transmitters in the remote and the receivers in the TV. So it's not gone anywhere. In fact, there's a reason it's not gone anywhere. It's because it works. And so that's actually the reason why it's been super easy for us. They're very cheap, it's very inexpensive, it's easy to find and easy to integrate.
So what's next? Because now we're controlling switches, but obviously there are different types of switches. There's fans, there's TVs, there's appliances in our homes.
Yeah, so the idea was we wanted to make it not just physically accessible, we wanted to make it economically accessible as well. And so the whole idea was, well, for the same price point that you would either get one Ring or one smart speaker, what if you could get a whole smart home? And that's the idea, right? Because you get a Ring, you can put one switch cover in every room and you're done.
Are switch covers and light switches just the beginning here?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, it doesn't actually matter what the switch controls. So lights are a common example. That's why we use it. But it doesn't, yeah. So your wall switch could control a fan. So you could control fans. It could control, for rental apartments, very common, to control an AC because that's switch controlled. So today the things we control are lights, fans, and appliances. And in addition to that, we control TVs. Now, what's coming up next is things that plug into the wall. And to back up a second, our big focus from the very beginning was only to focus on things that you need to do your daily activities. So what does everyone do on a daily basis, right? Everyone has to eat, go to the toilet, shower, change your clothes. And to do those 4 things, you have to get out of bed and move around the house, however you move. Those 6 things are often called activities of daily living. But the point is, to do those 6 things that everybody's got to do, no matter how much money you have, you need 3 underlying things. You need a light source. Right? In the morning, it's blinds. In the evening, it's electric lights. But you need light. Second, you have to open and close doors. And third, whichever space of your home you end up in, you have to usually control something. Oftentimes, your environment, like a fan or AC or lights. But also for, like older adults, it might be the TV. So that's our focus. We only want, instead of random Internet of Thing objects, we're only focused on the things you have to use every day. And for people with disabilities right now, those 27 million people I talked about, they can end up spending up to an extra 3.5 or 4 hours every single day to do just these basic things.
So if people want to find out more, where can they go for more information?
So you can go on our website, getlotus.com. That's GETLOTUS.com. Getlotus.com, like the flower.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I cannot wait to have you back on.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure being here.
The Lotus Ring is available in a kit of 1 ring and 3 switch covers for $349 US. And you can visit, as he said, getlotus.com right now if you're interested. Coming up here on Access Tech Live, are our devices getting too far out of reach? What do we think? More importantly, what do you think? We'll get to your answers after a quick break here on Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. is Access Tech Live.
Now, of course, we're all excited about the new hardware that's been announced by Apple this week, and we look forward to testing this stuff out here at Access Tech Live. But we've been asking you a very important question about not just the announcements by Apple, but other hardware announcements this year as well to date, Mark.
Oh, yes, new iPhones are here, but is the pricing of mainstream tech becoming too inaccessible to you? That's the question we threw out there, and everybody's been kind of providing feedback at Access Tech Live on social media, and of course our email address, feedback@accesstechlive.com. Ronnie wrote in, absolutely, when a phone costs more than one of my mortgage payments, it's definitely no for me. Yeah, I can't argue that logic. Tanya wrote, yes, thank goodness for financing programs, but Apple products will forever be ridiculously priced. This is a reputation I guess you probably don't necessarily want to have in this business. Phil writes, yep, getting a bit out of control. Does technology for a phone really change that much in a year? I got to add to that, he actually emailed me on the side saying, should I get it? And
No,
Greg wrote, don't do it. Greg wrote, been in the crazy range for a while. Financing, sure, I don't even know what he said. Financing, sure, but then even the incentives that you use to get through the phone companies have vanished. This is true. Like, it used to be that you could at least spread it out over 3 years, but now even those options are few and far between. And one from Ali here that just a year really. I remember 3 years here. You could spread it over 3 years, but you'd have to lock yourselves into a contract with your carrier, which people are like, oh, okay, I'll do it, but then you're stuck. And the last one here, Stephen from Ali, just wrote yes.
Straight to the point. I like it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been an interesting topic of conversation this week, and some great people we've had on this week. And thanks to Carrie Morales, of course. Do check out her fantastic YouTube channel, Carrie on Accessibility, and Chad Lehman Mark as well from Neil Squire Society.
Yeah, we're going to have him back on towards the holidays. They do a great program at Neil Squire called Hacking for the Holidays, and Makers Making Change, so we'll get to that. Of course, thank you for filling us in on everything here, and hopefully we'll get our hands on a lot of these devices over the coming weeks, and we'll catch you in our next episode here of Access Tech Live. Bye!
Thanks for tuning in to Access Tech Live. Follow us online on all social media at Access Tech Live. Email us feedback@accesstechlive.com. Hosted by Stephen Scott in Glasgow and Mark Aflalo in Montreal. Live show director, Anastasia Spalding-Stenhouse. Switcher and technical director, James Kennedy. Graphics, Caitlin Robinson. Audio, Kristen Prendergast. Integrated described video specialist, M. Williams. Supervising producer, Michelle Dudas. Produced in collaboration with Aflalo Communications, Inc. and Double Tap Productions. Copyright 2024, Accessible Media, Inc.
An AMI original production.